Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Heroes Connect Military to Manufacturing event, where we're continuing the conversation with another manufacturer who values your talent. Let me first introduce myself. My name's Katie. I'm a senior manager with the Heroes Make America program, and I'll be moderating your event today. Today is exciting. We're highlighting a company called Textron Aviation. You may or may not have heard of some of their brands like Cessna and Beechcraft, but I'm excited for you to learn all about them and their brands here today. So we do these events not only to introduce you to a potential employer, so for your post-military career, but we want to make sure that we're connecting you as a job seeker with employers who value your military talent. More importantly, though, we aim to help our broader military community better understand the manufacturing industry itself, because frankly, if you don't know someone who personally works in manufacturing, it can be a very unknown industry as to how your skill sets are applicable. All right, let's go ahead and get started for today. Before we jump in live, I want to go over some ground rules just to make sure we're all on the same page. First off, the event is being recorded because we're going to send it out as part of a recap email. So because of that, please stay muted throughout the presentation to ensure that we have, clean recording and no background noise. Although you are staying muted, I do still encourage you to be an active participant. So utilize that chat feature. So pull up the chat box. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, throw it in there, and then we'll circle back to it during the Q&A at the end. So be sure to ask those questions at the end. All right, what I want you to do though is practice that chat box. If you don't mind pulling it up on your computer, I want you to drop in where you're going to be job searching. So wherever in the country, city, state, region, you're like anywhere on the East Coast, whatever it is, wherever you're job searching, throw that in the chat box, and then our presenter can kind of see where you guys are all looking. While you're doing that, if you're not familiar with the Heroes Make America program, we are a DoD-approved SkillBridge and Army CSP program, and we're open to transitioning service members, veterans, reservists, National Guardsmen, and military spouses. We provide a variety of certification trainings, equipping our students for rewarding careers in the manufacturing and supply chain industry. You can see here our program managers and the 4 current training pathways that we offer. So we offer trainings in manufacturing operations, logistics, industrial systems, and our newest pathway, which is for aircraft mechanics to earn their FAA airframe and power plant certifications. We're going to go ahead and drop in our contact information in the chat, so you'll be able to connect with us if you have any questions. And then lastly, if you have any battle buddies who are transitioning out, or folks who maybe who have already been out, be sure to share our contact information with them as well if you think they'd be interested in one of our programs. The last thing I do want to mention, in addition to our SkillBridge training, so we not only train, we also host different events. So events like this, our Heroes Connect events, to learn more about employers. We also have different in-person and virtual career fairs. So we're going to drop in those links and dates into the chat as well. But you can see here kind of our summer series that we have, and the pending ones that we have for the rest of the summer and early into the fall. So we've got next month, we're going to be out at Fort Hood, Texas on the 30th. And then in September, we're going to be out at Fort Bragg, North Carolina doing an in-person job fair. And then we have an upcoming virtual one in August, on August 22nd. So I would mark your calendar, especially if you're at one of either Fort Hood or Fort Bragg, to make sure that you go to the in-person one, and then everyone mark their calendar for August 22nd to join us for the virtual one. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to our main feature, though. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to our first speaker, John Buckley from Textron Aviation. So John, the floor is all yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to pay attention and listen and learn about Textron Aviation. I'm sitting at Fort Polk, Louisiana right now. My son is in the Army, and he just PCS'd here. And unfortunately, the Wi-Fi in the entire neighborhood just went out, so I'm running off of a hotspot. So if you have a hard time hearing me, Katie's going to let me know, and I'll cut down my video and see if that helps. I have noticed from all of the locations that were listed in the chat, I was able to scan most of them. I can tell you that we've got job opportunities probably near most every location that was listed there. As an introduction, I myself was in the Army. I served for 33 years, active duty. I retired in 2014. I started working for a global company. My responsibility was to design and execute a recruiting and retention strategy for military veterans. And in January of 24, I moved over to Textron Aviation. I'm basically doing the same thing. However, our program also includes a very aggressive SkillBridge internship opportunity. So we've got a very strong veteran population. And with that, Katie, if you could take us to the next chart, please. So I know the ground rules were already presented, but I wanted to at least put on the screen there my personal phone number, my email address, and if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's the short address to my LinkedIn account. I do request that at the end of today's presentation, if you've got some comments, suggestions, or ways to improve, please do not hesitate to send me an email. I make these kinds of presentations very frequently to a lot of transitioning service members all over the country. And if I'm sharing information that is not accurate or could be improved, I'd greatly appreciate it, because I want to make sure all transitioning service members get the best information possible. And feel free, like I said, to connect with me on LinkedIn. Next chart, please, Katie. This is a quick agenda I want to follow. It's just going to be a good Textron Aviation overview. And then after that, we're going to set the stage as to what I do for the transitioning service members to ensure that we hire those fully qualified. Next chart, please.
Here at Textron Aviation, we don't just open the skies. We create opportunity. For more than 9 decades, Textron Aviation has been inspiring professionals just like you to explore, to soar into the next step of their careers with confidence, and to be part of something bigger, inspiring the future of flight for generations to come. As part of Textron Aviation's iconic brands, you'll encounter nearly every type of career path. But no matter where your journey takes you, you'll be surrounded by incredible teams who are there to support you. With education assistance, flight training, bonuses, and internal opportunities to change roles, we'll support you at every turn. Here, our values are not just words we say, but shared beliefs we strive to embody every day. We believe that individuality creates value. Quality is backed by honesty. Working together sparks innovation. And that you will carry our legendary reputation forward. We reward great work and believe in your potential to be part of the next generation of Textron Aviation leaders. Your career is not a destination, but a journey that will take you to unimaginable heights. Let your career take flight at Textron Aviation. The sky awaits.
So in the video, you were able to see our values, but I wanted to highlight at least the vision that we're focused on, and that is that we are the aviation leaders. And if you look at the 2 iconic brands that Textron Aviation owns, first one being Beechcraft, the other being Cessna, we own probably, well, over, I should say, 1/3 of the market in the world on selling these types of airplanes. So we are a leader now, but we continue to explore, experiment, and expand our capabilities. Our mission is to empower the collective talent to design and deliver the best aviation experience for our customers. And I do want to highlight the empower component of it, because we do delegate a lot of responsibility and allow our employees to be very creative and innovative. And it leads right into our values. And I'm not going to go through each one of them in detail, other than to say that these are the values that attracted me to Textron Aviation. As I departed active duty service and moved into the civilian workforce, I would tell you the thing that I least focused on was company values. I've been out now for going on 14 years, and I would tell you that being in the workforce and the civilian labor force, that the company values should be the first thing that you look for, because that gives you the purpose that you need to continue to wake up every morning and create value for your company. And I would tell you once again that the values at Textron Aviation is what attracted me and what keeps me here every single day. Next chart, please. I want to highlight a couple of our objectives, and these are very strategic objectives. And the first one is to really emphasize team culture. And that's one of the reasons why this organization is a terrific one for our military community to consider, because you are on a team, you're on the greatest team in the world, and teamwork and contributing to a team, building teams, training teams is all about our military culture. And so it's a perfect fit. We're transforming our customer experiences. And this is really important to us because not only do we design, build, and then sell the airplanes, but we also maintain them. So we have, and you'll see this in a few charts, we have locations all over the world where we have first-rate mechanics ready to improve, maintain, sustain, transform, modernize, upgrade their aircraft. And that's one of the biggest attractions for our customers. They appreciate not only the quality of the product, but also the product and the service that we provide them. So we're going to strive to continue to make our business better. I think a lot of companies do that, but we're also looking at upgrading our products. How do we modernize? How do we incorporate first-rate technologies? And in some cases, we're in the leading edge of creating a lot of the newer, more capable products and then integrating them into the airframe. So we are always looking to upgrade our products. And then, of course, to deliver growth. Certainly, we want to continue to expand our customer base, increase the sales that we make, but more importantly, continue to build and reinforce the very, very strong reputation that we have in our aftermarket, which includes that maintenance that I just spoke about. Next chart, please. So Cessna and Beechcraft were both created in Wichita, Kansas in the early 1900s. Wichita was considered the aviation capital, or I should say the air capital of the world, and it still has that nickname, as there are a lot of aircraft companies here. But Cessna and Beechcraft and their iconic names have remained on the market, and they continue to inspire the journey of flight. We continue, as it says, to look for better ways, more modern ways, integrating new technologies, and continuing to improve in communication systems and everything that is integrated into the airframe. Next chart, please. We also, and just to highlight, if you're not familiar with the Beechcraft and the Cessna lines, I want to highlight the fact that it's both jets and then turboprops and pistons. So basically, we have a huge market. As I said, well over a third in the world, selling all these different products to companies, to individual owners, teams, and that kind of sort. So in addition to that, we have a small defense and special missions team. So they sell and maintain, and in some cases train our military in some of our product and systems. We work very closely with the Navy and the Air Force in particular, and we have special missions. So what we do is we'll take an airframe and we'll convert the interior to support a special mission of a company that maybe wants to deliver a lot of boxes. So we'll reconfigure the interior. Maybe they want to have medical capability or firefighting capability or other things like that. So we'll take the airframe and the mechanical interior and then modify the cabin so that it can support those special missions. And that team, that defense and special missions team, we also support in the foreign military sales and other government agencies. So we have a broad customer base, not just the individual or companies, but also government agencies and other governments. And then, of course, we, as I said, have a huge service and support component. So the aftermarket piece is very important to us and is a great career to have. Next chart. Just to highlight, when I refer to Textron Aviation, it's more than just Beechcraft and Cessna. So we've got 4 other companies that make up Textron Aviation, starting at the bottom with Macaulay. They're based out of Columbus, Georgia, right outside of Fort Benning. They make the propellers. They manufacture, design, integrate components into the propellers. They don't just provide the propellers to us internally, but they also have external customers. Aero Motion is based out of Saginaw, Michigan, and they do a lot of precision refining of material and product, and they support the aviation industry as well. Able Aerospace, based out of Mesa, Arizona. They have a lot of CNC opportunities, so they'll take major pieces of airframe, whether it be a fixed wing or a rotor wing, and they support the Department of Defense. They support the Navy indirectly, and they'll take those components, they'll refine them, do a lot of CNC work, and then send them back, and they put them right back into the airframe. So they do a lot of depot level maintenance on all sorts of aircraft components. And then you've got TRU, or True Simulation. They're based out of Lutz, Florida, which is just outside of Tampa, and they design simulation systems for both the fixed wing and the rotor wing. Next chart, please. So to support a lot of what we do, we have several manufacturing facilities, mostly here in the United States or North America. As I mentioned, Textron has the Cessna and the Beechcraft. Those are manufactured here in Wichita, Kansas, and the Special Missions and Defense does a lot of work in the Independence, Kansas area, so right in the heartland. That's where the predominance of our employment opportunities are, and we have several, I think 5 total manufacturing facilities. I talked about Columbus, Georgia, and Macaulay. That's where we manufacture the propellers. Saginaw, Michigan has a small site out in Monroe, Washington, and that's where Aero Motion does their manufacturing. And then Chihuahua, Mexico, they make the fuselage for some of our King Air products and others that then they ship to Wichita, Kansas to complete the manufacturing of the airframe. Next chart, please. And as you can imagine, since we have customers all over the globe, we have to have a distribution system that supports all of our customers. So we, as you saw, a lot of the manufacturing components from Aero Motion or Macaulay, we've got some internal shipping, but then we also ship externally to support that aftermarket that I talked about. And in the next chart, I'll be showing you where some of these external service centers are, but that's why we have to have such a robust global parts distribution. We have to get the parts out to those service centers so that they can take care of our customers. And we've got to be proactive in doing that, and in some cases reactive. Next chart, please. As I mentioned, then the global service networks, I'm sure this is a hard chart to see, and all the various colors just basically indicate where we have centralized component of the service centers. So the black dots, which are predominantly in the United States, those are fixed building service centers. So we have them in Orlando, in Tampa, Greensboro, North Carolina, in Indianapolis, Indiana, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Wichita, Kansas, Houston, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Mesa, Arizona, and Sacramento, California. We've got smaller fixed sites that are being built, and there's small teams in Dallas and Atlanta. But then we have mobile service units. So those fixed sites that I talked about, they assist these mobile service units predominantly in the parts flow and the management of parts for them. But these mobile service units have to be in locations where they can respond to our customers. And then, of course, the maintenance line stations and authorized service facilities are those that we support in mostly in the global parts distribution. We don't necessarily have employees there. But you can see that our company is certainly a global company. Next chart, please. This is a video.
There is something magical about the power of flight. Freedom, adventure, endless possibilities. The sky truly is the limit. We're passionate about our creations and the opportunities they bring. Beechcraft, Cessna, symbols of innovation, inspiration, and imagination. Renowned aircraft serving a wide range of missions for customers in more than 170 countries. To some, they're tools of operation. For others, they're time machines. Either way, they empower our customers with the freedom of flight. Our people are at the core of what we do. Legendary people creating legendary products. A skilled team that has produced more than half of all general aviation aircraft in the world. And when those famed Beechcraft and Cessna brands joined forces in 2014, we became Textron Aviation, a perfect pairing of people and products. More clean sheet designs, more product investments, more capabilities, more support for our customers. New creations, new upgrades, 19 product announcements in the past 10 years alone. The future is bright, and we're just getting started. We're refining new ideas, bringing concepts to reality, all with a continual focus on excellence and quality. And as the Beechcraft and Cessna brands approach 100 years of ingenuity, the best is yet to come. At Textron Aviation, we're shaping the way people fly, today and tomorrow.
Now, before we play the next video, just a quick introduction. So Textron Aviation is the company that I work for and that we're talking about today. But I do want to highlight the fact that Textron Aviation is one business unit within Textron, which has a very diverse product portfolio. So if you look at the pictures on the chart, you can see those that go up and down on the left. Those are Textron Aviation product. Part of the Textron portfolio includes Bell Flight. So they make the helicopters. So for the Army, they just recently bought a new airframe from Bell Helicopter, Bell Flight. And so they are going to be replacing all the Blackhawks. All that manufacturing will be done by Bell, which is a sister business unit of Textron Aviation. We also have a lot of different companies. You can see them listed at the bottom, like Homing, ATAC, Textron Systems. We work, Textron, I should say, has companies that are working in the electrical aircraft. They're also looking at unmanned systems. They make an unmanned naval connector that does ship-to-shore work, unmanned flight. They're looking at unmanned cargo vehicles that can be used by the military to island hop, quite frankly, in the Pacific if they need to. So there is unmanned systems is a big thing within Textron. They make a lot of product that support the aviation industry. They do product for the ground. They recently won a huge contract in the golfing profession because they make golf carts. So there's a lot that Textron does. And the reason I want to highlight them is because if you join the Textron family by finding employment with Textron Aviation, and due to family situations, you have to relocate, or because of career pursuit, you want to get a different job, you can stay within the Textron family and you can move. And as you add all these companies and their locations, Textron is in practically every state, but they also have a global footprint. So it really broadens the capabilities to your own career path. So let's go to the next chart and see the video about Textron.
For over a century, Textron has been dedicated to shaping the future. As a leader in innovation and technology, our groundbreaking solutions have pushed the boundaries of what's possible. In the air, on land, and at sea. So we can make the journey faster, safer, and more sustainable. This is our mission, and we are unwavering in our commitment to excellence so that we can continue to move forward, pushing boundaries, inspiring innovation, transforming the future. Textron.
We can go to the next chart. And just as a quick snapshot, because I know it was the very last part of the video, you can see some of the logos of all the various companies that fall into the Textron's portfolio. At the top, you can see the Bell Flight, and then of course, Cessna and Beechcraft, and then all the different companies that make up Textron. Some of those you probably recognize, like Homing, Jacobson, Cushman, E-Z-Go. Let's go to the next chart, please. So I think it's important for you to understand, if you're considering a career with Textron Aviation, to understand why we hire from our military community. And I do want to mention, although in my introduction, I just told you briefly about my military service, what I didn't tell you was that I had some pretty difficult jobs in my military career. I worked directly for the Chief of Staff of the Army. I worked directly for the Secretary of the Army. I was an infantryman. I commanded troops in combat. But I would tell you that when I decided to take off my uniform, the transition into the civilian workforce was absolutely more difficult than any of those jobs that I just highlighted. There's a very difficult process that we undergo, and it's more than just finding the job. It's settling into the civilian workforce. And I'm going to talk about that because that's what really drives us as to why we hire from our military community and how we help them in their employment with Textron Aviation. So let's go to the next chart. We look at hiring from our military community as a very strategic approach. Not only do we see it as finding a good employee, but more importantly, we see this as strengthening our national security. As we hire military veterans into our organization, and they integrate and they interact with and they collaborate with civilians throughout the workforce, but also in the community and in our customer base, it influences a lot of them to share those stories. Look, this individual is in the military, and look at this fantastic job that they have, and look how well they're doing it. It translates into their sons and daughters wishing to pursue the same career path, entering into the military before they come into the civilian workforce. So we look at it as holistically, and we think it's a very good cycle, not only for the company, but also for the nation. Next chart, please. I think the other major reasons that we hire from the military community are some of the strong skills, but also the soft skills that you bring to the table. First off, we need leaders. The organizational structures within practically every civilian workforce and every company, to include Textron Aviation, it's not leader heavy. It's not hierarchical like it is in the military. So the ability to lead small teams, to step into the leadership role informally, is something that's really important to the success, and the ability to focus on the vision and do the job. The ability to manage multiple complex tasks simultaneously is something that is very attractive to the non-veteran business leader. The ability to learn new skills, to adapt to changes and modernization and new tools and new policies is also a strength. And then the commitment to compliance. And I think this is something that a lot of us in uniform take for granted. We are so focused on doing things according to specifications, according to a policy, according to a rule or guidance, but also from safety perspective, driving safety to the point that it becomes second nature, that we take it for granted when we take off our uniform. But that is a strength. Civilian leadership sees your focus on safety and the ability to manage risk, and that's very attractive to them. And then the entrepreneurial mindset, the ability to be innovative, to be critical and creative thinkers, to see cause and effect relationships, the idea of urgency, all those things are very attractive. So that's these are other major reasons why we pursue hiring military veterans. Next chart, please. And I think these are 10 soft skills, basically, that our hiring managers look for. We ask them, why is it that you continue to select military veterans when you have several highly qualified civilians who've applied for the same job? And these are the things that they constantly and consistently point out to us. They like that you're goal-oriented, that you also seek growth, and that you also accept and succeed when the challenge is upon you. Next chart, please. But as I mentioned to you, even despite those very difficult and complex jobs, transitioning into the civilian sector was extremely hard. So why is that? Let's go to the next chart. And I think this is something that you all need to really take to heart, because we underestimate this. I probably have presented these highlights and these challenges probably a million times. And it's interesting to watch the people in the audience, although I can't see you, the natural reaction is, oh, this isn't going to happen to me. I got this. But I'm here to tell you that the challenge is consistent with practically everybody I've ever met who's taken off the uniform and entered into the civilian workforce. So don't take this for granted. It starts with the fact that there are 3 government agencies who have some responsibility to your transition. Certainly the Department of Defense, they're the ones that are responsible to give you the opportunity to go through TAP class. The Department of Labor, they design the actual content of the TAP class, and they have to coordinate with the Veterans Administration to ensure that they incorporate all of the different benefits and other things that compensation that you may get to take that into consideration. And they do that all in 1 week. And so there's a tragedy of the commons, and there's all sorts of issues that are not addressed. And if you really put this into perspective, you think about how many weeks and months you trained at the front end of your military service to get ready to be in the military, and you only get 1 week to learn how to be a civilian. It really complicates the problem. So this sets the stage for the complexity of your transition. Let's go to the next chart. I've done a lot of research in this area and a lot of personal work in this area, and I don't necessarily intend to highlight all 10 of these barriers, but you will confront these barriers in some capacity. And I deal with them every single day with every military veteran that I'm trying to find a job for. But the first one starts out with that communication and culture gap. So you may be saying the same words, but they have different meanings than your civilian counterpart. You may have different titles, different references, different meeting names, and all of that are done similarly in the private sector, but they have different titles and different references. But the culture gap is the biggest component. You have a culture where you are focused on a mission. You're definitely focused on a team. You're oriented on doing the task to standard, not to time. You have leaders who are at every level given directive authority, telling you what to do. And the culture is very unique. It's very tribal in nature. However, the culture in the private sector is tremendously different. It's more independent, individualized, self-centered. It's focused on the time, not necessarily on the mission and not the standard. I mean, yes, they do it to standard. I'm not saying they lower the standards at the high standard, but that's not what drives them. It's the time and it's the money. It's how much money can we make. Those are different than what you're focused on. You have a purpose. You know what that purpose is. You can connect your job to the end state that your team is trying to achieve. In the private sector, sometimes it's really hard to see that. Time is always an issue. You have a time. You know when Uncle Sam is going to stop paying you. You applied for the job yesterday and you don't understand why you don't have an interview tomorrow. Okay, well, the hiring manager who makes those decisions is driven by something completely different. They have no knowledge of your short timeline. They have no interest in your short timeline. They're driven by business requirements. They're driven by, do they have the money to bring somebody on and start paying an additional salary? Do we have the space? They are driven by something completely different, and time will always be an issue for you. And I deal with it right now. I notified a veteran that he's going to get a job offer last week. Well, here it is on Tuesday and nobody's called him with the actual offer. And he's panicking. Well, how come nobody's called me yet? Well, it takes about 5 or 6 days to go through the administrative process to develop the offer. You don't understand what the requirements are, and the business doesn't understand what your needs are, and they are not driven by your time. They're driven by business requirements. Lack of credentials is a big one. You do some of the training and certification driven by the same and has the same requirements as other government agencies that we're driven by here at Textron Aviation. We get the credentials, you don't. And so you sometimes have to train, like you do with Heroes Make America, to get a certificate, to get an OSHA certificate, or get something that's going to contribute to your employment status. So I can go through each one of these in detail, and you will probably confront every one of these. And just as a quick sale about Heroes Make America, if I could, the reason I really love working with Heroes Make America is they do a lot to reduce the challenges in each and every one of these barriers. There's not another company out there that does that. But I really think that they do a great job at trying to minimize the effects of these barriers. So what's the effect of all this? If you look at that bottom square in the left, in 2024, because of all of these barriers, I'm sorry, not because of the barriers, but in 2024, veteran unemployment was at an all-time low, meaning that the unemployment rates for veterans was much better than the non-veteran peers. However, if you look at that top right box, underemployment was rampant because of the effects of these barriers. And what do I mean by that? Let's just take the time component, as I mentioned already. You need a job. You know, Uncle stops paying you on Monday and you don't have a job offer yet. You're going to take the first one that comes to you. You'll end up at a gas station if you have to, because you need money. But if you do your transition properly, then these barriers won't necessarily have that kind of an impact. But underemployment was rampant. Turnover was very high in the military community. 50% of veterans left their first job within the first year. And it was well over 70% in 18 months. And it comes back to a lot of these barriers that causes this. And then retention was poor. So only 15% of transitioning service members retained their first job beyond 2 years. So if you stay with a company, though, for 2 years, the tendency for you to stay longer than your non-veteran peer, get paid more than your non-veteran peer, get promoted more frequently than your non-veteran peer is tremendously higher. So if you can do the transition right and end up in a company with the right values and the right opportunities, the likelihood of you doing much better than your non-veteran peer is very, very high. Next chart, please. And then finally, as I talked about that culture and communication gap, and I just want to pull on that string a little bit longer, because there are stressors involved that you will underestimate. The transition stress, just getting the job in and of itself is going to be a stressful time frame for you. But most of the stress that you're going to face in your transition occurs after you sign that contract. How do you get integrated into the civilian workforce? As I mentioned already, the military is a very tribal society. It's very individualistic in the private sector. You have perpetual responsibility and readiness while you're in the military. I mean, you're always on. You're go, 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 even at nighttime sometimes. But you're not like that in the civilian sector, and you'll feel that effect. Whether you want to call it this or not, I would tell you that the military is a hyper-masculine environment. And that hyper-masculinity has a much stronger effect, believe it or not, on the females who transition. And what I mean by that is you have been successful in the military despite the hypermasculinity. You have actually transitioned to be very successful and taken on a lot of that hypermasculine type of culture. And then when you transition into the private sector, you'll really look like to the non-veteran, that you're out of place. I'm not advising you to change your approach. I think you'll stay and be successful applying the same skills you've learned in the military, especially in the leadership arena. But just know up front that you may have some challenges and people misreading and misperceiving you in those leadership roles. So the challenge, the transition is harder after you sign that contract. Acclimating into the workforce is very, very difficult and can be very debilitating. To top it all off, you're also confronted with the non-veteran individuals who have common misperceptions about you. If they know you're in the military, they're going to say, oh, this person, cannot take the initiative. They have to have a checklist. They have to have an SOP. They're going to have, oh, you all have post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury. All these different things that they learn from watching the movies and TV, and it definitely gives them an incorrect perception of you. And that's something that you're going to have to fight through as well. Next chart, please. So what do we do at Textron Aviation to help you overcome those barriers? Next chart, please. So first and foremost, we have senior leaders who are definitely involved. Our CEO was a West Point graduate, and he is, I think he put in 10 years as an aviation officer, and now he's the CEO of Textron Aviation. So it starts with him, but it permeates throughout the entire company where they have an emphasis on hiring military. The national average, I think, is well below 5% of a workforce is going to be a military affiliated individual. At Textron Aviation, we're well over 15% of our workforce has some affiliation with the military. That means active duty who have transitioned. That means National Guard and reservists. That means military spouses. That also means DoD civilians. But they advocate for the military hiring. They allocate resources for us and all the different initiatives and programs that we have. And they are very open to creating unique opportunities, doing unique interviews to highlight and to determine where you are the best fit in the company. Next chart. We also have a military programs team. Myself and Josiah are part of that team. We consider ourselves matchmakers. We are able to interpret your military career into a Textron Aviation career. Many times you'll have a perception of a job or a career path that is inaccurate, and vice versa. Hiring managers and recruiters who do not have military experience will be completely incapable of interpreting your military skills and experiences into how that will benefit the company. So we try to fill in those gaps, and we are matchmakers, pointing and connecting you to the right recruiter for the right career path. We're also coaches and mentors. We coach not only you in your transition, but we also coach and mentor the recruiters. We coach and mentor the hiring managers. We give them information and explanations and define what military careers create strengths in the workforce. And why? Well, as I said, we value the military community. We are a military-ready company. We also advocate for work with our veterans in the community to include, working with the homeless veterans, veterans who've gotten in trouble with the law, with the VA, and a lot of different programs, but most importantly, because you need it, and so do the recruiters and the hiring managers. Next chart, please. We also have an employee resource group called VetCom. It's made up mostly of veterans, but it also includes other military affiliated personnel. We've got moms of those who are in the service. We've got spouses of those who previously served. We've got military spouses, but the employee resource group exists to mentor the new hires. How do we coach, teach, and mentor you into and acclimate into this workforce? So I mentioned that all of your challenges, or most of your challenges, begin after you get the contract. Well, that's where VetCom steps in, and they can do the coaching and mentoring and assisting in all the different areas, not just in the workforce, but into the community. How can we help you acclimate into the community? We are very aggressive in our Department of Defense Skill Bridge programs. We hire a lot of military aircraft specialists and maintainers, but we also highlight and orient on a broad array of military skills because we do everything in our company. We do more than just manufacture and maintain the airplanes. All that work that we have to do in supply chain and every other facet. We have about an 83% match between our company career paths and the military specialties, AFSCs, ratings, or MOSs. But we also are a sponsor of Heroes Make America's airframe and power plant certification training program. So we've created a unique method of helping aircraft maintainers to secure their AMPs so that they can then be really better paid and have more relevant jobs in the civilian workforce. Next chart, please. We also have, and this is relatively new, we have a very aggressive marketing and communications strategy. And next week we'll begin videotaping, filming, interviewing, and taking pictures of several of our veteran employees who want to tell you what it's like to work here at Textron Aviation, but also want to reach out and say, I can help you. Let's coach, teach, and mentor and assist you as you make your transition and try to acclimate into the private sector. So we're very we're sinking a lot of resources into this endeavor, and hopefully we'll see the fruits of our labor here in about 2 months. Next chart, please. And this is the video as well.
Textron Aviation doesn't just create exceptional aircraft. We inspire the journey of flight. And nothing makes us prouder than seeing people learn to spread their wings. To fly is to feel the purest form of freedom, to push yourself to new heights, to become a legend in the sky. There's nothing quite like seeing the entire world in front of you and then conquering it. So what are you waiting for? Join our team and help build the future of flight. Come feel the pride.
Next chart. Right before I open up the questions, I do want to, also help improve your understanding of the careers that we have. As I mentioned, we do have manufacturing. So if you have a maintenance background of any sort, it does not have to be aviation maintenance. You will have a tremendous opportunity in our manufacturing facilities, CNC type work, We have IT and cyber work. We have supply chain. We have engineers. We have pilots. We have aircraft maintainers, avionics experts, electrical experts. So we have human resources opportunities. We have public affairs and marketing and communications opportunities. So we have opportunities for practically every military specialty. The challenge obviously would be a timing component, but secondly would be a location. So most of our manufacturing jobs and our supply chain jobs will be centered here in Wichita, Kansas. When you get out into those service centers that I mentioned in Florida and Indianapolis and Wisconsin, California, all those different places I mentioned, most of those jobs in those locations will be people who have an A&P license, avionics experts, structural aircraft mechanics, and some supply chain jobs. So once again, I want to show you my contact information. I have listed there our career site. We have our company site if you want to see all about the company. And then again, in the bottom right, you can see my phone number, my email address, and my LinkedIn profile. So please do not hesitate to reach out and connect. I'm happy to answer any questions that are out there.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Let me put myself back up. We do have a couple questions in the chat box, and we're at the point where if you guys do have questions, throw them in the chat. But also, if you want to come on live to ask your question, just navigate the control panel, and there's a reaction tab, and just do the raise hand feature, and you can come on live and ask your question as well. But a couple were location questions. So, John, I know you had mentioned a couple Texas locations. San Antonio was one of them, correct? Was that one of the service centers was down in
Yes.
San Antonio?
And center. So the types of talent that we're looking for in San Antonio will be those who will have their A&P license, their avionics experts, structural mechanics, because that's where we do a lot of our maintaining of our customers' airframes. We have a few others, like sometimes a supply chain job will come open, but there's no HR type or engineer type work that's also in San Antonio. I see one about Savannah, Georgia. Unfortunately, we don't have anything in Savannah, Georgia, but we do.
Oh, John, you may want to turn off your video. You're getting a little spotty. You cut out after you were explaining San Antonio.
I was saying the next question, I think, was a question about Savannah, Georgia. And no,
Yes.
we don't have any opportunities in Savannah, but we do have opportunities in Columbus. We have plenty of opportunities right outside the gates of Fort Benning.
Perfect. And then I saw a question about background in logistics. So you had mentioned all the distribution centers. So of course, yeah, if you want to answer that as well, but maybe different levels of logistics, or what does supply chain look like in Textron, both at the manufacturing sites themselves and then at the distro centers?
That's a good question. We have everything in the supply chain arena, from strategic type of purchasing, making contracts for certain items and material that we need, down to somebody who can run a warehouse. We have a series of in our larger manufacturing facilities, we have a lot of supply specialists who are responsible to deliver the parts to the specific point in the manufacturing line. So maintaining that stockpile of whatever they may need to build the airplane and to keep up with the process. We have a lot of those supply chain needs. We're constantly looking for material handlers in that regard.
Perfect. And I know there's a lot of folks typically in our HMA program that have a logistics supplies background. So yes, there are things that you can do. And then I had another question from someone who is actually already interested in Textron as an employer, especially in Wichita. Do you know much about the sourcing agent type of position, the strategic sourcing agent position that's there in Wichita, to be able to describe that a little bit further?
Sure. The strategic sourcing agent is more along the lines of what I mentioned earlier, where it's finding certain companies or capabilities and making contracts with them to ensure that we can continue to have the parts that we need. And these are very these are very strategic in nature. So somebody who's worked at the depot level or a discom could potentially have that capability that's necessary. I would just tell you one, I think his name is Bob, reach out to me. You've got my email address. We can take a look at your qualifications, because that's the key thing. Do you meet the qualifications that are listed in the job description? That's the most important thing. If you meet the qualifications and 100% of those, then we could probably look at working on an application and getting you in front of a hiring manager.
Thank you, John. And to kind of expand on that answer you just gave, what would you recommend? So someone who is interested, they see a position online, do you recommend they reach out to you and or Josiah first, talk through that position before applying, or just go ahead and apply? What do you think in terms of the process?
Yeah, my recommendation is to do just that. I mean, certainly you don't have to. The job description is there. There's a button there that you can continue right into the application and attach your resume if you want to. But in many cases, you're not going to get any feedback. So I would highly recommend, you've got my email address there, that you send me an email and say, hey, John, I'm interested in this job. All I need is a 6-digit requisition number or the title in the city, and I can look into that. I could give you more information about the specific job. We could schedule a meeting over Teams. We could talk about your skills, your experiences, your qualifications, your certifications, if they're relevant to the actual job. And like I said, we even, as we said, we're coaches and mentors. We could even sit down and give you some immediate feedback on your resume and things that you have to highlight to become more attractive to the hiring manager. We also provide tips and advice on preparing for interviews. So we provide, basically we can hold your hand through the entire hiring process if needed. Just send me an email and say, hey, I'm interested in this job. And if we can connect you on your skills and experiences, we can take the next steps together.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And I will just echo that. John is offering himself as a resource for you all, because he knows how difficult the transition can be, and maybe sometimes we don't quite understand how our skills translate to the positions. Him and Josiah are resources for you, so do take advantage of that opportunity, because not every company just offers themselves up like that with someone in John's position to help you guys locate your position. John, another question for you. If someone is, looking specifically at, Wichita or another location, do you recommend they just get their foot in the door somewhere? Is there more lateral or, other movements that can happen once they're in the company? Or do you recommend really shooting for that top position right off the bat?
Yeah, I think the best approach for practically every military person who's taking off their uniform and entering into the civilian workforce is do a lateral move. In other words, take the precise skills and experiences that you currently are demonstrating on a day-to-day basis and make that move directly into the civilian workforce. And the reason why, first reason why is, as I mentioned, the acclimation challenges, fitting in, understanding the leadership styles, understanding how the company works, understanding how you really must interact with the customers, understand how you can contribute to making more money for the company, how you can, apply the safety rules and protocols, whatever it might be. That is extremely difficult. So if you're trying to also learn new skills at the same time, that would make it really complicated. So we have a method for advancements and promotions. We have an annual review where you could get a bonus, you can get a pay raise, considered every single year based on your performance. I would say from an stress standpoint and acclimating and settling into the civilian workforce, make it easier on yourself and do that lateral movement into the company, instead of trying to find something that, oh, I want to be the VP of something. You'll get there. As I mentioned before, military veterans will get promoted, get more pay raises much more frequently than their non-military peers, but you got to acclimate first. So I think that's great advice, Katie. You look for a job that fits with what you're doing today, and everything will take care of itself rather quickly. Internally, you can move. There's nobody sitting at the Pentagon telling you when you have to move out of your job at Textron Aviation. That is totally up to you. You can stay in that job for years if you want to. If you want to move out of it because you've mastered it and you want to get advanced, you want another experience, we have those methods with your supervisor and the feedback that they provide you on a near daily basis. And they will have some good knowledge and they will be very candid to you about where you might want to consider going. You might have a desire to go in Avenue A, and they may look at you and say, you don't have those skills and experiences. You really need to go to Avenue B. That's where your strengths are. They're going to give you that candid feedback. So help yourself acclimate into the private sector and be much more successful and translate your skills and experiences directly into a job in the civilian workforce.
Thank you, John, for that advice. I think that's very helpful for these folks as they're navigating the process into their next career. There are some questions that I wasn't able to get to in the chat, but we are right at time. My advice, if we didn't answer your question here today, book a time with John. You know, if someone asked about you, if you're an intelligence analyst, the two of you can maybe talk through what is your skill set, what are the transferable skills that you can bring over, types of positions that you can kind of morph into. You know, are there specific trainings or certifications? Those are all great questions for John individually because he can work with you in your situation and not broadly across an event like this. But thank you for asking those questions. But we are right at time. John, do you have any final last minute words for these guys before we let them go for the day?
The only thing I would say is don't be bashful. If you have a question and I wasn't able to answer it, Bob, Marcus, and Asia, do not hesitate to reach out. I'll do my best to answer your questions. And if there's any others out there, I've given you my email address for a reason. I'd be more than happy. Or just connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you for your service, and I wish you the best of luck in your transition, and I hope that you can become my teammate.
Awesome. Thank you, John, for giving your time today. Thank you to our participants for being here. Before you all head out for today, there's a short survey that came up, a poll, 3 questions. Go ahead and fill that out before you head out for today. Also, if you didn't grab John's contact information, I'm sure we'll have a follow-up email with a recap from the event. We usually do it end of the month and you'll get all the recordings and things like that. But thank you for joining us here today. But next steps, connect with John, connect with John, connect with John. Talk with him about positions, talk about all the things that we reviewed here today. Make sure you follow Textron Aviation on LinkedIn for updates, follow John, connect with him, connect with our team, follow the Heroes Make America program while you're there on LinkedIn. You get updates on all of our events. And then, of course, join us next week. We'll continue the conversation in aerospace. It's aerospace 2 weeks in a row, but we're excited to talk with another company. We'll have Gulfstream next Wednesday, July 30th at 3 o'clock. So join us next week as well. Other than that, you'll have a great day. Thank you for joining us today.